Say what's cracking, YouTube. You already know how this gonna go. It's your boy 16 to life. Yard down! And I'm back today with another story for y'all. Now, so check it out for those of y'all that might be new to the page. In 1994, I got arrested. I was sentenced to 16 years plus life. That's how I ended up getting the name. And then also I ended up doing 24 years straight in these California prisons. So during them times, I accumulated some stories. Also, if you're new to the page, man, check me out. Scroll through my page. I also be rapping, man. I really get busy. Scroll through there. I got some audio songs up there. I got some video songs. So check those out, man. I got a mixtape that I'm selling, 16 songs. It's on CD or it's on USB flash drive. So if you're interested in getting it, cash out me $14. Leave a mailing address. Be sure to put whether you want a USB flash drive or you want a CD, and I'll get it out to you within a day. My cash app is $chill700, and I'll be sure to leave it in the links as well. Like I say, man, there's 16 songs. It's fire, man. You're gonna be surprised. Fuck with it, man. So anyway, let's hop into the story. Now, this particular story right here takes place at CMC East. Now, let me give y'all a little update on CMC East or whatever. Okay, a lot of people are misinformed. They think that CMC East was a SNY prison or it was no good or whatever, and that was never the case. CMC has always been a general population prison. Now, what CMC was they had a lot of high-profile inmates there from time to time. So, you know, at one time you had Suge Knight there. You also had Bruce Davis, who was a member of the Charles Manson gang. You know, you may have some police that went there or whatever. So the Serranos and the Norteños and the whites, they had a policy among their race that if you went to that prison, you had to leave there within 48 hours by act of violence. That way, so when you go there, basically you get into a fight and they would write you up and say that this inmate refused to program at CMC. That way, when they transfer to another prison, they would show that paperwork and they would still be considered good. Now, you did have a lot of inmates, whites, and a lot of Serranos who stayed there. Now, in the event they would get into it later on, or their points drop or their points go up and they got transferred when they went to wherever they was going, due to the fact that they're coming from CMC, they would get a physical discipline. A lot of times they'd be attacked or whatever. Well, like I say, that wasn't the policy for Asians, for the Paisas and the blacks, you know. So actually, too, then later on, around when I was there when this happened, a high-ranking Serrano was released from the Pelican Bay SHU, and he came to CMC East. And of course, now everybody's seeing what's gonna happen. Is this dude gonna stay? Is he gonna come out, start fighting, and leave by way of violence or whatever? But what he did is he had a big giant meeting and declared that prison was now that prison was okay for the Serranos to start coming to. And so maybe I would say about 6 months after that, they had a real big riot on the yard with the blacks. And it was a Crip by the name of M1. He was a white Crip from Central California somewhere. He ran with the blacks and he was killed. Now, the riot wasn't behind him being a white Crip that ran with the blacks, but you know, he participated and he got killed. Actually, he lived about 6 cells down from me. I had left maybe 4 or 5 months before the riot jumped off. So anyway, man, rest in peace to M1, and let's get cracking on this story. Now, what was different about CMC, like I say, due to initially when I first got there in 2005, it still was a whole lot of Serranos there. And initially when I first got there, it was so many of them, I didn't even believe it at first that they couldn't be there. Because to keep it real, you know, all the Serranos that I've been around, they have programmed, you know, they solid and they riders and all that type of shit. And, you know, due to the structure that they have, you know, they have a lot of unity. So by me seeing so many Serranos there, because like I say, a lot of them would come there and they would choose to stay. You know, maybe they'd be short, they'd be going home or whatever, but they choose to stay. So, but it still was less racial politics, you know, than you find at other prisons. You'd even have sometimes where the Serranos would engage and play in sports with blacks. They play football, basketball, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so, but what was real different about CMC, and it was cool, you know, they had there you had your own key to your cell. You could go in and out as you pleased all day long. You know, at other prisons, you know, you might it's like an unlock every hour on the hour. You go outside at 8 in the morning, then at 9 you can come back in. Well, initially when I first got to CMC, like I say, you had a key to your cell. You could run in and out, all 100 times a day if you chose. Also, what made it stand out too is a lot of prisons, they got what's called commissary or canteen, and you got to go to commissary. Most of the times you have to go outside this. You got to go outside a gate, and then you go to shop at commissary. But now at CMC, when you went to commissary or canteen, you could buy what was known as ducats, and it was basically a ducat was basically just like Monopoly money. It was like $1 bill basically, and then you come back to the yard, and on the yard they had what they called mini canteen, and don't a whole lot of prisons have this, maybe 2 or 3 in California out of like the 32, 33 prisons that California have. And at the mini canteen, they sold popcorn, they sold chips, they sold soda, ice cream, candy, shit of that nature. And so, but what that actually did is those ducats, what they called them, they became a form of currency. So at other prisons where people would be trading stamps, and even like at other prisons, roast beef, chicken in the can, chili, canned goods and shit like that is a high commodity. But at CMC, they didn't want none of that shit. Only thing they wanted was ducats. And like I say, them ducats turned into a form of currency, and it made it extremely easy and lucrative to get your hustle on up in that motherfucker. Because sometimes people would go on a visit, they'd bring back $100 bill, and then they would sell the $100 bill for like 180, 170 ducats, depending on whatever the going rate was. And see, the reason being that was because a lot of people, when you went to court and you got sentenced, you'd have restitution. Restitution is basically a fine that you have to pay. Now, when I first hit the pen, restitution was only 22%. So if your folks send you $100, you still was gonna get 78. But every few years they would hike up the restitution. And before long, restitution was at 55%. So if your folks sent you $100, all you was getting was $45. So a lot of people tried to avoid that restitution, and cats who would be hustling and having ducats, they'd sell the ducats. So people would have their family Western Union money to somebody, and then they would sell them the ducats, as opposed to going to the store and getting the money sent and them taking 55% of your money. So hopefully I made that clear for y'all to understand. All right, so now, like I say, along with all that shit, if you caught all that, now one day I'm on the yard chilling, right? I'm up there, I'm hustling, man. I'm selling big tobacco and shit. And I had a homie who pulled up. He was from Ontario. His name was D. So D pulls up, you know what I'm saying? And so me and D, we get to talking and shit. We get kind of cool, right? And so now cigarettes up there, you could get like a pouch of tobacco was like 70 ducats. But then you turn around, you might roll up anywhere from 35 to 40 cigarettes. Cigarettes was $3 a pop. So you do the math on that, you making a nice little profit. You know what I'm saying? So cans of tobacco was going for $500. So eventually what me and D started doing, we started going half on a can of tobacco. You know what I'm saying? He put in $250, I put in $250. And we'd be selling like that. I'd have people who'd sell cigarettes for me and all that type of shit. Then I'd have a gang of ducats. Sometimes I might, like I say, and then you could only have 50 ducats. So if the COs caught you with more than 50 ducats, they was gonna take the shit. So I'd have people hold my ducats, or a lot of times I would take the 180 ducats and go buy a $100 bill, and that way it was easy to hide. So then I could always get it out when I use it, when I need it, or sometimes I'd give it to my fam band when they came to visit and shit. So anyway, like I say, me and D, we doing this, we buying tobacco and shit. Now D had D had 2 or 3 women out there, that was looking out for him and sending him bread and shit. And so, D was doing good and cool and shit. Then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, D started like coming up short on cash and shit. I don't know what the hell D was doing. We'd buy a can of tobacco, and I don't smoke. My shit, I strictly was hustling, and it stayed running to that mini canteen. A cat would come get at me. He want to buy some ducats. I'd have him tell his people to send $50 or 100 or however many ducats he wanted. Once my people would go check it and it hit in the Western Union, then I'd give him the money. This is before they started using green dots and all that old type of shit. But like I say now, D D would lately start like, you know, we buy a can of tobacco, and 2 days later, 3 days later, he'd be asking me for tobacco. I'm like, damn, D, what the hell going on, man? You out of tobacco already? What the fuck is going on? You know, so I slide him a little tobacco or whatever. So now one day, D come and get at me. He like, hey, chill. It's a dude on my tier, man, that want to get 100 ducats. And I said, is he good? D said, yeah. I said, okay. He said he gonna send the money out tomorrow to wherever you wanted to go. So okay, since D is the homie and he cool and shit, I give him the 100 ducats. And I tell him, okay, go ahead, take the bread, and, you know, I give him the address, have him send it to my folks, right? So now, so in a day or two, like when D said the money was gonna get sent, the money don't never show up. So periodically, I'm getting at D. Like, hey, D, what's up with your boy, man? Your boy ain't sent that money. D be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go holler at him. He gonna send it. Now, this shit go on for about, man, I would like to say probably about a month or two, you know. And then periodically during this time, now it's a couple people coming up to me here and there telling me that D owed him money and shit. So I'm like, damn, D, what the fuck are you doing, you know? And see, D had burnt his bridges with the girls that he was fucking with. Because he was, you know, I guess he would tell him, okay, you give me the money to buy this tobacco. I'm going to send you X amount of money back in, you know, maybe a week or two. And after a while, he had stopped doing that. You know, like I say, I never did find out what the fuck D was on. So we go through this bullshit for a while, right? So now one day, this dude come get at me, man. He say, D done ran up a high-ass debt with him and shit. So I go down there and holler at D. I go ask D, do you owe him? D said, yeah. So make a long story short, you know, D had been owing dude for about 3 weeks. So I tell D, hey, listen, homie, you got to pay your debt. You know, for those of y'all who don't know, when people who don't pay their debts, sometimes it can turn into a bigger shit. It can turn into riots or whatever like that. And that's the reason why if a person runs with a collective, his prospective car push a hard line on him about, you know, no gambling on your ass without being able to pay, no running up debts and things of that nature. You know, some people be like, man, why y'all trying to control people and be in other people's business? But y'all don't understand, man. It's a whole lot that goes on with this shit up in here. You know what I'm saying? And so I was on D about that, right? So basically, long story short, we were just starting to be able to order these flat screen TVs. I can't remember if I think they was 15-inch, but they might have been 13-inch. But either or, we was able to order the flat screen TVs, and they also had a CD player on the side. And, you know, since D didn't have old boy's money, I told D, hey, listen, homie, you got to pay old boy. You got to kick that. You got to give him that motherfucking TV. And he really didn't want to do it. The TV was brand new. I mean, not even a week old. But, you know, I said, you know, D, you got to pay your debt, homie. You know, you ran up a debt, you got to pay it. So if you ain't got the money, give old boy the TV. Old boy said he would take the TV. So that's what D ended up doing, even though he really didn't want to. He ended up paying the TV and shit. So this video is getting a little long, man. Y'all come back for part 2. Scandalous D is going to get cracking.